love you, Cleveland. I love you, Cleveland. And I love you, Ohio. And a very pleasant welcome to this week's version, Bonus Time with Drennan, here on the Big Play Sports Network. Brought to you by our good friends at FanDuel. Hi, I'm Bruce Drennan, along with Ryan Smith, who's back after being off for Thanksgiving last week. Hi, partner. Welcome back.
What's going on, Bruce? I'm happy to be back in Ohio. Happy to be back here at Burke Lakefront Airport. Happy to be back on a Bonus Time with Bruce Drennan.
Well, we've got a lot to cover today, so let's get right to it. Our beloved heroes. I figured I'd wear this nice sweatshirt that I have from the Browns because they need all the support they can get. I've been preaching to you these last few weeks about culture. Culture. What is the culture of our team, the Cleveland Browns? The culture is finding ways to lose. Unfortunately, that's a fact. It is not finding ways to win. How do you change the culture? Haslam's not going to fire himself. Therefore, it's got to be Barry and Stefanski. And in the head coach's situation, the Browns for decades have been hiring tremendous offensive and defensive coordinators, but that's not necessarily a prerequisite for being a great head coach in the NFL. They've got to get an established NFL successful head coach with previous head coaching success in the NFL. Guy like Gruden. I guess the heat's on Tomlin in Pittsburgh. He'd be an ideal fit here, too. The problem is, if one of these guys is available, why would they want to come here and inherit this mess that'll take time to rebuild? Don't think for a second that the Browns didn't feel out Vrabel. They did. He didn't want anything to do with it. Why should he? Especially now what he's doing with New England, to see what he's doing with New England. So that's the dilemma the team is in, but you've got to change the culture. Stefanski this week, and at the press conferences every single week, oh my goodness. Here's the quote. There's going to be things that we can clean up. Don't we hear that every week? When are they going to start cleaning it up? They can't. But you can't play that way, putting a good team on a short field that many times. Turnovers, muff punt, allowing a giant punt return by special teams, all contributed to San Francisco's victory over our Browns. And the defense, if you're a defensive player on the Browns, you've got to be going home to your loved ones and saying, what in heaven's name blank do we have to do? The Browns defense, statistically, is second overall in the entire National Football League. There's 32 teams in the NFL. Our offense is 31st. And then special teams is, it's got to change. Sanders had a decent first half. He was sacked 3 times in the second half. Judkins, I love. That was a real good pick. Garrett got a sack finally, 19. He needs 4 to break Strahan and TJ Watt's record. He'll do that. Love him. But you gotta, your assets are, you could get 2 first rounds and maybe 2 second rounds for Garrett. You certainly could get a nice return for Njoku, Denzel Ward, Delpit. You've got to start all over. The culture must change. The over-under by Las Vegas at the beginning of the season for Browns wins was 4.5. We have 3. I'll let the cat out of the bag. In the handicapping segment that I'm going to be doing forthcoming with Ryan, I will predict that the Browns are going to win this upcoming game with Tennessee. That's 4. But then we're at Chicago. I think we'll beat the Bears in Soldier Field. Home to Buffalo. That's going to be an important game for them. At Pittsburgh. That's certainly going to be an important game for them. And Tomlin's job could be on the line. And at Cincinnati. And believe it or not, they're not out of it now with Burrow back, especially after what they did to Baltimore. Ryan.
Bruce, it's interesting, and I was having this debate a little bit about, Browns fans are kind of, they're split between where the Browns are. You mentioned the historic defense, and the polar opposite is the horrendous offense. And you talk about coaching, right, Bruce? Like, if the Browns are to go a new route with the coach, well, who would want to come to Cleveland? The one thing I would say to that is, well, what's the most attractive thing for a head coach to come to a new team and have when he gets there? Of course, money. A blue-chip quarterback, or the opportunity to go get your quarterback in the draft. Now, Browns have 2 first-rounders. Could they use those to trade up to the number 1 pick to go get a guy like, I don't know, Fernando Mendoza, if that's who they think should be the number 1 pick?
The Jets have more ammunition to do just that.
And it's interesting, Bruce, because even then, well, what does getting a quarterback do? If you look around the team, it's completely void of talent. Are we going to go throw another young rookie quarterback into the fire?
And think how many quarterbacks we've drafted that we've ruined.
Nothing's guaranteed to work out, Bruce. And in fact, for the Browns, it's been the opposite. More than likely, it doesn't work out. So Browns are in another interesting decision. We'll see what they do with those 2 first picks. I don't blame anybody if they didn't want to come into this dumpster fire.
Right. All right, we'll be back in a minute. We'll take a look at the rest of the NFL. We've only just begun on bonus time here on Big Play.
The Big Play Sports Network is brought to you by Garage Beer. No bitterness, no frills, no IPA, just beer-flavored beer. Find local retailers who sell garage beer near you by visiting drinkgaragebeer.com.
It's tough to figure out this Buffalo Bills team this year. 26-7 win over Pittsburgh this last week, this Thanksgiving weekend. Josh Allen threw for a touchdown, ran for another. That gives him 76 rushing touchdowns in his career. That breaks the NFL record for rushing touchdowns by a quarterback, previously held by Cam Newton. Running back James Cook rushed for 144 yards, had 3 receptions for 33, and the visiting Bills got a much-needed victory to improve to 8-4 and keep front-running New England within their sights in the AFC East. Meanwhile, the Steelers, who started the season off at 4-1, have now dropped 5 of their last 7 games and are 6-6. More importantly, they blew an opportunity to take advantage of Baltimore's loss to Cincinnati on Thanksgiving night. And how shocking was the Ravens' performance against Joe Burrow in their 32-14 loss to Cincinnati, at home no less. Baltimore committed 5 turnovers in that game and was outscored 20-7 in the second half. Baltimore will host Pittsburgh Sunday. Something's got to give, Ryan.
Bruce, it's so interesting. The Browns get blown out at home, and that's just par for the course. We know how that goes. The Steelers get blown out at home, and you got fans booing and asking for the GM or the owner, Omar Khan, to fire Mike Tomlin. I would love to have Mike Tomlin. It's interesting, though, because the Steelers consistently live in a purgatory of mediocrity, and I can't blame them for getting tired of it. It's all perspective.
And they're spoiled there.
Yeah.
Going way back to Chuck Noll. Again, they've had 3 coaches since Chuck Noll. How many of the Browns had since Noll was hired in Pittsburgh in the 70s? Houston 20, Indianapolis 16. Former Browns favorite Nick Chubb ran for a touchdown in this game, and C.J. Stroud returned at quarterback after missing a month and made a statement to the first-place Colts that they are far from clinching the NFC South title. After starting off 7-1, the Colts are bleeding right now and certainly coming down to earth, dropping 2 in a row and 3 of their last 4. The win puts Houston at 7-5, and if their defense plays down the stretch like they did in this game, smothering the Colts' so-called high-powered offense, they may indeed repeat as the AFC South champions. Don't be surprised. But let's not overlook the Jacksonville Jaguars, who annihilated Tennessee 25-3. Trevor Lawrence had his best game of the season, and Jacksonville is now tied for first with Indianapolis at 5-4 in the South. Houston is only a game back, and the division is up for grabs with 5 games to go.
Bruce, I keep bringing everything back to the Browns. I don't mean to, but when you look at that Houston Texans team, it goes to show you a phenomenal top 5 defense, maybe the best defensive unit in all of NFL is the Houston Texans. They don't have anything special on offense. C.J. Stroud is certainly playing better than he was in the beginning of the season. They're protecting more, but it goes to show when you have a defense that good, Super Bowl caliber, what you can do, and it just should make Browns fans all the more mad.
Denver 27, Washington 26. The Broncos were lucky to avoid a huge upset in the nation's capital in this one. Rich Benito batted away a Marcus Mariota pass in overtime to deny Washington a winning 2-point conversion. Lucky or not, this is Denver's 9th straight win. The Broncos have won 8 one-score games. The Commanders, playing once again without quarterback Jaden Daniels, are not going to make the playoffs this year, but like they did a year ago. However, they could very easily come back next season, in my opinion, and be a force in the NFC East, especially as the Super Bowl champion Philadelphia Eagles show more and more that they are indeed beatable. On Friday, Caleb Williams and the Chicago Bears went into Philadelphia and ran all over the defending Super Bowl champions. Kyle Monaghan rushed for 130 yards, and DeAndre Swift ran for 125. And the Bears launched themselves in sole possession of first place in the NFC North at 9-3. More on the Bears in just a moment. But back to the Eagles. It's highly unlikely, considering their remaining schedule, that they will not once again win the NFC Eastern crown. They have 2 games left with Washington, and they have a home game versus lowly Las Vegas. But they certainly look to be beatable, Ryan.
Oh, they definitely look beatable. I think, if anything, the bigger outtake of that was, for me, for the Chicago Bears. I think they put the NFL on notice. Yes, they've been winning, but they've been beating bad teams. But you travel into Philadelphia, who's had their lulls. I get it. But you show you can win both ways with Caleb Williams slinging it. And then you go on the ground. You bully them in the trenches. You mentioned 200-yard rushers in Swift and Monangai. They showed that they're a team that can win multiple ways. And Ben Johnson is doing all the right things, taking his shirt off in the post-game press conference. Going from Eberflus to Ben Johnson seems to be exactly what Chicago needed.
2 other Thanksgiving Day games affect both of their division races. Green Bay beat Detroit 31-24 as Green Bay quarterback Jordan Love had time enough to carve several turkeys before actually carving up the Lions' defense with 4 touchdown passes in that affair. Detroit quarterback Jared Goff certainly was not to be blamed for this loss. He threw for 2 TDs, but was pressured and harassed by Micah Parsons and company all game long. This loss drops Detroit to 7-5 and puts their playoff hopes in jeopardy, with remaining games against Dallas, at LA against the Rams, home versus Pittsburgh, at Chicago to end the regular season. Meanwhile, the win improves the Packers to 8-3-1 and only a half game behind the first-place Bears. The Pack controls their own destiny now, too. They play the Bears twice, but also have very challenging games at Denver, home to Baltimore, and so the NFC North is still up for grabs, too, Ryan.
You know, the Packers are like 2 different teams. You look at games when they played the Browns and Panthers, and even though the Panthers just beat the Rams, which is absolutely astounding, but you're looking like, how did you lose to these teams? Then you go out and you beat teams like the Detroit Lions in Ford Field, and they look like the reason they were a Super Bowl favorite. Detroit starts off slow too often, and the story of it is going for it on 4th down. They were 0 for 2 on 4th down. Vice versa, Green Bay 3 for 3 on 4th down. Jordan Love, probably his best game of the season.
Lions are banged up, too. Dallas Cowboys 31-28 win on Thanksgiving over Kansas City puts them into the playoff picture for the first time this year. Although the path to the playoffs will be difficult, but it's doable for them. They play at Detroit, they host Minnesota and the LA Chargers, and they finish the regular season on the road at Washington and in New York against the Giants, so it's possible. Meanwhile, the defending AFC champion Kansas City Chiefs are now 6-6 and are in serious jeopardy of even making the playoffs. Forget the divisional crown. Denver's, just coasting along. The LA Chargers are 8-4. So is Jacksonville and Indianapolis in the South. Houston 7-5. New England leads the East now at 11-2 after Monday night's 33-15 whooping of the New York Giants. Buffalo's 8-4. Also, both Pittsburgh and Baltimore in our division are likewise 6-6. So don't expect to see Taylor Swift in January in that upper box cheering for Kansas City and her boy. Finally, Carolina 31 and the LA Rams 28. Bryce Young was 15 of 20 in this game, threw 3 touchdown passes, 2 of them coming on 4th down. And Matthew Stafford was picked off twice and fumbled before helping Carolina to improve their record to 7-6 and keep them on the heels of first-place Tampa Bay and Baker Mayfield. The Bucs held off Arizona 20-17 Sunday, but the Rams fall into a tie with Seattle for the NFC Western race at 9-3. Seattle shut out Minnesota 26-0, and of course, San Francisco's win over our Browns keeps them at 9-4, only a half game behind the other two. Ryan?
NFC West shaping up to be maybe the best division in the NFL. I know the Cardinals are kind of holding that down, already eliminated from the playoffs at 3-9, but 3 9-win teams. Seattle looks like they have one of the best defenses. San Francisco keeps finding ways to win despite being hurt. And then the Rams are just a damn good team. I'm looking forward to see how that one finishes.
Rams may be the team to beat in the NFC.
I still think.
But I don't think you can definitively or confidently say this team in the NFC, this team in the AFC, they're the clear-cut favorites to meet in the Super Bowl. You just can't do it.
In which I'm very happy about.
Yeah, the last 5 weeks are going to be intriguing, no question about it. And so will the next segment when we make our handicap picks. I better get on the ball. This character's got a better percentage than me. What the heck is going on? That's next. Bonus time with Drennan. Big play.
The Big Play Sports Network is brought to you by Smart Choice Windows. Energy-efficient products at an affordable price. Visit smartchoicewindows.com today.
Hope you and your families all had a wonderful Thanksgiving, upcoming Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, Happy Holidays to everybody from all of us here on Bonus Time with Drennan here on the Big Play Sports Network, brought to you by our good friends at FanDuel, who also wish you and your families a safe and happy holiday season. Ryan here was off last week visiting relatives for Thanksgiving, so Pat subbed for him, and I went 2-4. I had 6 games. Those of you who are new viewers to our show, I pick the games that are the toughest matchups, the most marquee matchups every week, and we pick the games with the spread. So I went 2-4 last week, and Pat McGuire, subbing for Ryan, went 4-2, that dog.
Wow.
On the season, I am now 36-36. Ryan here is 31-28. Missed a couple of weeks. Pat's 10-3.
Pat.
I know. All right, you ready?
Let's do it.
I let the cat out of the bag earlier. Tennessee is getting 3.5 here in Cleveland against our Browns. I already said the Browns are going to win this game, and I think they'll cover, just like they did in that matchup against Miami.
I do too, and it certainly won't be because of the offense, but that defense should roll over the Tennessee Titans, cause rookie Cam Ward to have a horrible day.
All right, next, Dallas is getting 3 points. They're at Detroit. I'll let you pick this one first.
Yeah, I'm going the Cowboys to, I think they straight up win this one, to be honest with you, but I'm going to take them to cover if that's all I have to do. The Cowboys offense is playing phenomenal right now. Their defense is doing just enough for that bad defense. But the Lions, they're going to maybe be without Amon-Ra St. Brown. They're without Sam Laporta. They are beat to all hell. Opposite ways momentum going for these two teams. Give me the Cowboys to cover this one.
Agree. I'm going with Dallas as well, and Prescott is playing extremely well right now. It'd be quite a story if Dallas comes back and makes the playoffs, and they would be, if they carry that momentum into the postseason, they're going to be a tough out for whoever they face. All right, Indianapolis is -1 on the road at Jacksonville, and I'm sure that Ryan is probably going to say Indianapolis is going to bounce back, but I predicted Jacksonville would win this division at the beginning of the season. He laughed.
He did laugh.
Who's in first place right now? But Jacksonville, and that's without Hunter. I'll take Jacksonville only because of that prediction.
Yeah, I got to roll with my gut. I still got to take the Colts. I still think the Jaguars are a little bit fake. Colts might be a little bit fake as well, but I still think they're a better, well-rounded team. I expect Jonathan Taylor to bounce back in the end zone, and they beat the Jaguars. Yeah.
All right, Lawrence, as I mentioned earlier, coming off that great game. All right, next, Pittsburgh is getting 5.5 at Baltimore. Your pick first on this one.
Yeah, I'd love to know if Aaron Rodgers was definitely going to play or not. I don't know what's going on with his wrist.
I don't think he is.
So I'm going to then in that. But again, the Ravens looked horrible against the Bengals.
I know.
I'll go to cover. I think in a game like this, that is too big of a number. That doesn't make me love the Steelers or the Ravens in any way, but I think it's too big of a number for an AFC North division matchup. Give me the Steelers to cover.
I gotta go Baltimore. I've got to think they're going to show some pride, especially at losing at home like they did, and they're at home in this game. They've got to, and the pressure's on Tomlin. I'm going to take Baltimore. Next, the Chicago Bears are getting 6.5 at Green Bay. As you know, I grew up in Chicago. This is a very intense rivalry, like the Browns and Pittsburgh. The Bears have got all kinds of momentum right now. Green Bay, I'm not a total believer in the Bears, but I'm certainly not a total believer in Green Bay. So, therefore, I got to look at the points. That's a lot of points, 6.5. I'll take Chicago.
That is a lot of points. I'm shocked it's that high, even though it's in Lambeau. The history, obviously, the Packers own the Bears, but the Bears right now are playing really well football. Packers may be coming off their best overall game in that win against Detroit, but again, Bruce, I'm with you. That's way too big of a number. Give me the Bears to cover.
Houston is getting 3.5. They're on the road at Kansas City. Take it away, partner.
Yep, I'm going to go the Texans to cover this one. Their defense is playing lights out. C.J. Stroud is coming back to what we thought he would be in his third season in the NFL. And the Chiefs right now, offense is okay, but their defense, they don't have an answer. They certainly didn't for Dak Prescott. I think Texans offense does enough. Their defense limits Patrick Mahomes. I think they cover this one.
Well, for the same reason I'm taking Baltimore to play in front of their home fans with pride and finally show a nice performance in front of their fans, I got to take Kansas City. I don't think the 3.5 is asking too much for them to cover, even though everything Ryan said I agree with as far as Stroud and especially that Houston defense. Finally, Philadelphia's -3 at L.A. against the Chargers. I got to take the defending Super Bowl champs, especially because Herbert just got hurt.
Yeah, I don't love this one. Omarion Hampton, I'm waiting to see if he'll be back. But again, Herbert's beat up. The O-line is beat up. Eagles need a bounce back. They're going to keep pace in that NFC for the number 1 seed. I'll take the Eagles to cover. I don't feel great about it, though, Bruce.
You don't want to miss the next segment. I've got a lot to say about the college football playoff. That's next. Was Michigan so desperate that they sabotaged the communication system in the second half? It didn't matter. The Buckeyes' big win over the Wolverines makes them 12-0. Total domination. And enabled our undefeated team and head coach Ryan Day to avenge the last 4 years when we lost to that team up north. Buckeyes showed the nation why they are indeed the legitimate number 1 team in the country and favorites to win their second national championship in a row. Explosive offensive weapons and the number 1 ranked defense in college football. Up next, Indiana, Buckeyes favorite by 4. Quick comment.
Buckeyes finally did what you expected to do the last couple of years, is dominate Michigan, because that's what the talent disparity told you that they should have done. Julian Sayin, after that 1 interception, played phenomenal the rest of the game, and he was able to do some things Ohio State quarterbacks haven't in the past couple of years, is throw the ball around the yard against Michigan, and that ultimately led them to the victory.
All right, Indiana's 12-0, 56-3 win over Purdue, and it plays our Buckeyes for the Big Ten championship. But what is to be proven? They both deserve to not only get into the playoffs, but have first-round byes. Both of them deserve it. Injuries could occur in this game. Nobody will care if they get beat early in the playoffs, but you could say, oh, but we won the Big Ten championship. Who cares? I give you last year. We lost to Michigan, went on to win a national championship. So what's to be gained with these conference championship games? I'm totally against them continuing. What's to be gained by Georgia playing Alabama again in the SEC? What's the point of Texas Tech playing BYU again in the Big 12? Explain to me why it is important for Virginia to beat Duke again. Duke is 7-5. What a joke. And the biggest joke is the playoff format allowing a group of 5 team to be in. Likely North Texas, Tulane, or heaven forbid, James Madison. North Texas got beat by South Florida 63-36. Tulane lost to Texas San Antonio 48-26. And St. Ed's schedule has is much tougher than James Madison's schedule was. This entitlement to the group of 5 schools deprives several much more deserving teams from getting in. If number 13 ranked Texas or number 10 ranked Notre Dame don't get in, consider this. If they were to play North Texas, Tulane, or James Madison, who do you think Las Vegas would make the favorite in that game? And by how many points? 3 touchdowns or more? Putting one of these undeserving teams in gives their opponent, for all intents and purposes, a bye. It's like a bye, Ryan.
Bruce, it is disappointing because when you look at, and I'm going back to the conference championship game before we go back to the group of 5, is what are you playing for? Potentially the Heisman, maybe Fernando Mendoza and Julian Sain. It says that, but one, you're right, all that can come out of it is injuries. 2, why would these teams put out their best product when they know they might be playing them again in just a couple of weeks? It makes no sense. Now back to the group of 5. I get your frustrations. I kind of do as a fan of UC, not a powerhouse like the Ohio States, like the Alabamas. Kind of like to see the little school get in, but you know it's going to be a bloodbath when they do get in. I just hope one time we do see that upset. So then we can maybe validate it. But, Bruce, I totally get your point. For a team like Texas, a team like Miami, a team like Notre Dame, if they miss out on the college football playoff, then they have every right to be upset.
Ryan went to Cincinnati, so that's why he's but the way that they can get in legitimately is to schedule a Bama, an Ohio State, one of the established powers early in the season in a non-conference game and beat them. And then run the table in their own conference, then they've got a legitimate point.
That's very fair.
Otherwise, all right, both Ohio State and Indiana are putting up, are assured of getting in and probably getting a first-round bye, no matter what the outcome of this upcoming Big Ten championship game is. Oregon's also going to be in. They're going to get a berth to be another Big Ten team, so there'll be 3 from the Big Ten. Even if Alabama beats Georgia, the Dogs are in. But if Georgia beats Alabama, why should the Tide, with 3 losses, automatically get in? And I say that because that seems to be the prevailing theory, that even if they lose, they're going to get in. Why? Oklahoma, Texas A&M, and Ole Miss most assuredly are getting in, and deservingly. Texas is on the bubble. Texas Tech appears to be a lock from the Big 12, but what if BYU avenges their only loss of the season to Texas Tech in the Big 12 championship game, and they beat them? Don't they deserve to be in? And do they both get in from the Big 12? And the ACC, what a mess that is. I mentioned the championship game between Virginia and Duke. Boy, that's one you don't want to miss. But Miami's the highest-ranked team, and they're the best team in the ACC, clearly. I thought it was Georgia Tech for a while, but reality set in with them. Finally, Notre Dame, after losing their first 2 games of the season to Miami 27-24, and at home to Texas, and that was at Miami, and then at home to Texas A&M 41-40, the Irish have run the table and absolutely clobbered everybody they've played since. They deserve a bid. And a lot of people, what if they are deprived? That is so unfair. A lot of people didn't think Notre Dame deserved to be in last year, and what did they do? They went all the way to the championship game and eventually bowed to our Ohio State Buckeyes. Unbelievable, Ryan.
It really
There's
is.
flaws in this system, big time.
There's definitely flaws, and I'm not sure what the fix is. I can't understand ranking Alabama above Notre Dame. Again, if you're going to put in Virginia because they win the ACC championship, but where does that leave Miami? Are they going to be out, even though they're clearly the best team in that conference? A team like BYU, you mentioned, if they go ahead and beat Texas Tech, well, then they're sitting there with a 12-1 season, but you're putting Texas Tech in. Are you not going to put them in because of 2 Big 12 teams being in it? You don't want that? I'm not sure. There's a ton of flaws, Bruce, but I don't see a quick fix, and I'm not sure we'll get one.
And it takes away the intrigue of Indiana playing Ohio State in the playoff.
Exactly.
I mean, and if both Georgia and Alabama get in, that could happen too. Or BYU and Texas Tech, like you just, they could play. That'd be 3 games against each other in college football. Give me a break. And by the way, If you're curious why I haven't mentioned Lane Kiffin, don't miss the next segment. Bonus time with Drennan. Big play. Lane Kiffin is a disgrace. A disgrace, I say. He wants his cake and eating it too. You can't have it both ways. He thinks he deserves it. He's blaming Ole Miss for not allowing him to coach the Rebels in the playoffs while he's starting to run the LSU program in recruiting, stealing players. He'll steal players from that Ole Miss team. You watch how many transfer through the portal from Ole Miss to LSU. And he's also going to persuade some of his coaches to go, although I heard that Ole Miss is offering to double the salary of some of those coaches just to keep them and do it out of spite. What else can they do? This hypocrite's going to try to steal players, and then he claims he's found religion. I loved his interview after the win the other day against Mississippi State. I haven't made the decision yet. That's bull. He already made that decision. I'm going to have to pray on it. Listen, I'm all for religion, but I don't buy it with Kiffin. I don't buy it. Trying to change his image, is he? Let's talk about that image. In 2007, he was hired as the youngest head coach in National Football League history by Davis and the Oakland Raiders. After going 5-15, Davis was really upset with him. Kiffin gave it right back to Davis, and Davis says, "You're a liar," and fired him. In 2009, he was hired at Tennessee. He went 7-6 and bolted the campus right in the middle of recruiting. There is still a very, very foul taste in the mouths of every Tennessee Volunteer fan, alumni, and students because they've been educated by the alums. 2010, he created chaos when he left at Tennessee to go to take the job at Southern Cal. In 2013, he was fired at Southern Cal after going 28-15. By their standards, that's not acceptable. And he was fired at the airport and wasn't allowed to ride the team bus back to the campus. In 2016, he left Alabama as an assistant under Saban before the national title game to take the job at Florida Atlantic, where he went 26-13. In 2020, he got the Ole Miss job, and now in 2025, he's leaving for LSU. I'm all for capitalism. I'm all for making as much money. But what's his claim to fame? He hasn't even come close to a national championship contender. And I have to pray on it. Ryan.
That's the thing that kind of boggled my mind throughout this whole process was, why is Lane Kiffin this hot commodity? Yes, I understand he's had this great season at Ole Miss, and they have 11 wins, and they're headed towards the playoffs, but you're right. His track record, yes, he's worked with some very intelligent people. Saban, you mentioned it, of course, but what has he really done that has made him the hottest commodity this offseason? Maybe it's the competition. There weren't that many people, but for LSU to make this whole thing, and I get it, but you're going from Brian Kelly, who you fired, was a complete disaster. Then you're going to Lane Kiffin, a guy who, let's call it for what it is cocky and arrogant. And to go from a guy who I thought was also cocky and Brian Kelly, well, I don't think that was a smart move. It's kind of like a lateral move. And you're giving all this guy this money. Poor Ole Miss. Now they have to deal with him leaving the franchise in the wakes of ruins like he's done everywhere else he's been. LSU, you're going to realize this in a couple years when he fails and you finally buy him out probably, that this is going to be the same thing and you put this on yourself. I feel bad for Ole Miss, and to pretend that you won, took the time to think about this process. No, you didn't. You knew the second you had that job available, you were going to go take it.
Yeah.
And then two, to make this whole charade about wanting to coach your team in the playoffs. Why in the hell would they ever let you coach the team in the playoffs? You're actively competing and recruiting it against them.
Yeah.
You're a conference rival. It makes no sense, and he needed to just take the job, shut up, and move on.
Think of the matchups with at LSU with Mississippi and even Tennessee and Florida too, because he snubbed Florida.
Yeah.
So, all right, Ask Bruce segment next here on Bonus Time with Drennan. Couple of notes before we field your questions. I think Donovan Mitchell said it best the other night after the win. He said, this is where we should be. We should be winning games like this. He had over 40 points. He's just absolutely phenomenal. But he said, this is where we should be because, of course, the start that we got off to a year ago. I think the Cavs will be fine. Now, what we do in the playoffs remains to be seen. That's all because of physicality, the lack of it, I should say, in these past years. But I think they'll be fine. But I'm glad to see Mitchell take that leadership role. The other note I would make is the winter meetings are coming up in Major League Baseball, and there's going to be some big doings. The Toronto Blue Jays just signed a player, a former Major League pitcher that was playing in Korea, and they're really bolstering their forces following their American League pennant victory and, of course, losing in the World Series to the world champion LA Dodgers. So we'll see if the Guardians do anything. The winter meetings usually sometimes are a prerequisite or lay the groundwork for a deal that will come after the first of the year. So it'll be interesting to follow that. We'll keep a close eye on it for you. All right, Ryan.
All right, Bruce. Well, speaking of those winter meetings, hey, Bruce, are there any affordable right-handed bats on the trade block that you think the Guardians could acquire?
Yeah, they're talking about Hayes, a free agent from Baltimore. Had a couple of good seasons. He's 30 years old now, and I think that is doable. I really think that they've got to be, Antonetti and Chernoff have got to be talking to some teams about a trade. We're so loaded. I don't know how they can figure out who's on that 40-man roster. That's how deep the farm system is for our Cleveland Guardians. So I would think they got a couple of assets to make a deal with these young kids to get a right-handed bat in here. Your guess is as good as mine. I'd like to see a right-handed hitting outfielder join our crew of all lefties and have some pop to be able to hit 20-plus home runs, which would be more than any of our outfielders did this last year.
All right, well, continuing on with that, Bruce, would you be willing to part with any one of C.J. Kafis, Chase DeLauder, or George Valera to acquire that veteran right-handed bat?
That would totally have to depend on who we would get in return and what the contract of that player's status would be. If he would be controllable for the next 2 to 3 years, I'd be open-minded to that. Otherwise, no, because I love the potential of those three aforementioned outfielders. I absolutely love the potential and the possibility of them becoming all-stars.
All righty, we'll flip it over to football. Hey, Bruce, if you were the Cleveland Browns, would you be willing to trade your 2 first-rounders to the number 1 spot to draft potentially Fernando Mendoza?
Yes, I think they have to consider that because Sanders, we know now that Gabriel is a backup at best. And I'm not convinced about Sanders. He had a decent first half. We haven't seen enough of him yet. Some might say we haven't seen enough of Gabriel. I have. And I'm about that close to saying the same thing about Sanders. But, yes, they have to. They have to do that. The problem is the Jets have more ammo. And they're going to go after Mendoza, I think. There's a lot of other quarterbacks that will be available in that first round, but knowing the Browns, they'll find a way to screw them up too.
Alrighty, hey Bruce, if the Steelers' season collapses and they do indeed actually fire Mike Tomlin, 1, would you want him here in Cleveland? And 2, do you think Mike Tomlin would actually ever consider coaching for the Cleveland Browns?
Yes. And I don't know. Would you? I don't know. But yes, I would offer him the moon.
Alrighty, last question for you. Hey, Bruce, Ohio State versus Indiana is the conference game, championship game I'm most excited for. How about yourself?
I'm not. I mean, my whole segment that I did on college ball, I'm really looking forward to the playoffs, but I got a problem with that group of 5 team, whoever it is. There's a possibility 2 of them could get in. I didn't even mention that. Do you realize that is a possibility? If Duke beats Virginia, so there's really none of them. I mean, we've seen Georgia and Alabama. I'd rather see Indiana and Ohio State play in the playoffs where it really does mean something. Again, if they play in the playoffs and but we won the Big Ten championship. That's like the Cleveland Guardians and the Cincinnati Reds playing for this Ohio Cup. Neither one of them makes the playoffs. Neither one of them gets to the World Series. But we won the Ohio Cup this year. That's all the time we have. Bonus time with Drennan, Big Play Sports Network. Hope you enjoyed the show. Drive carefully. We're getting some bad weather again, too. I'm Bruce Drennan on behalf of Ryan Smith. Good to have Ryan back. We'll see you next week. We'll have plenty to talk about, I'm sure. So until then, as always, and most importantly, you remember, I love you, Ohio. And I love you, Cleveland.